Catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.
From the COVID-19 pandemic to two major recessions, an unstable political situation, the collapse of oil prices, two major recessions, breakneck inflation, high unemployment, more than 20 million people looking for jobs in 2021, and many up and going, to other countries with the trend known as Japa. Oh, the recent Naira crisis too. All of these things put together, have not helped Nigeria or Nigerians seeking financial alternatives. In 2022, the Central Bank of Nigeria announced its intentions to redesign the Naira, issue new notes, combat inflation, counterfeiting. Well, it depends on where you sit on, but Nigerians are still going through some certain level of uncertainty in terms of finances. Just after the COVID pandemic lockdown period, the buzzword in Nigeria was crypto. Yes. Okay. Well, P2P, peer-to-peer markets became a popular way to buy and sell cryptocurrencies in the country until a regulation came into place. Now, Blockchain Solutions and Consulting from Convexity released a report that gave some fresh insight into the complexities of the day-to-day crypto peer-to-peer market in what is Africa's largest crypto market, Nigeria. You're surprised? Nigeria? Yes. Still Africa's largest crypto market, despite the many uncertainties that has hit those within that space in the last few years. Well, I have with me today Abel Goji, a data research analyst with a first-class degree in maths, and the head of the data and research team at Convexity Technologies Limited, and Sandy Om'Iniabohs. I hope I said the name right. She's a data and research analyst with broad-based experience across agro, allied, and IT industries. In addition to her work as a data and research analyst, she contributes as a contributing author on Educative Answers. It's a free web encyclopedia for developers. Hi, good day. How are you doing today? Let's start with Sandy. Sandy, how are you today?
Good morning. I'm fine. Thank you, Andrew.
Well, I'm okay. I'm good. And Abel, how are you today?
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having us on this call.
Beautiful. Where do we begin? What was it like before we had the regulation on cryptocurrency trading in Nigeria? Abel.
Okay, so speaking of regulation, I think we generally, publicly, people came to know about this whole regulation stuff when the CBN released a ban for banks to restrict aiding crypto companies, carry out transactions. So I think that is where it became so public to people as to, oh, really, what is this? What is really going on here? And so what is this cryptocurrency all about? And so regulations really started coming at our people's face, right? And so I think that is the point where the whole issue of regulation became well known, or would I say recognized by the general public, as especially when it's regards to cryptocurrencies. Before then, there've not really been any say on that, but because of some concerns, I believe, from the central bank, right, they decided to have to come up with the ban of restricting banks, aiding cryptocurrencies transactions.
Sandy, what do you think the impact of this regulation that Abel just mentioned? What impact did it have on the P2P market in Nigeria?
Okay, so I would say the ban, it opened the way for more, because now people were like, okay, we can't do P2P through the banks. So there were more informal methods of doing P2P. And also it created more, it created a shift from the informal methods of P2P that we having before. And P2P exchanges also had to innovate because of this ban, to ensure that their customers in Nigeria are also still having a means of having exchange, P2P and cryptocurrency exchange.
And for Abel, how exactly did you Convexity go about working on this report? What was the process like? Which persons did you speak to? How long did it take to work on this report? And what were also the major findings of the report?
Okay, yeah. So I think before I answer that question straight, the whole concept of P2P has always been there. Understand the concept of buying and selling just person to person policy. The whole ban rather by CBN just made it bring it to the light of people as to trying to understand, okay, what is this really? And since people are not able to buy cryptocurrency directly from exchanges, right, various means just begins to come up to say, okay, how do we really go about this? How do I sell my Bitcoin? How do I buy Bitcoin and the rest, since exchanges are no longer allowed to aid us in doing this transaction. And so I think they've been a really great shift there, right? And that's why we are now seeing that volumes even begin to change. Volumes in Paxful, volumes in Bitcoin, local weeks on Bitcoin also begin to increase. And so that's one of the effects of the regulations, right? Of the ban rather. Now, for this particular research, of course, the research cut across trying to understand the state of cryptocurrency in general, and particularly also the P2P market. And so for we at Convexity, having been in this space for a while now, we decided to take a look as to, okay, what is this market really saying, right? And particularly P2P market, what is it really saying? And so we carried out some survey, right? Our team, the whole research team, right, conducted survey targeting key players in the cryptocurrency space, right? People who are OTC traders, right? People who are normal day traders, people who involve themselves in any form of cryptocurrency activity, especially buying and selling. And these key players are people who have been in this space for over 4 years. And so our focus, our methodology was basically through surveys, right? Gathering both qualitative and quantitative data from this group. And so the research took us for about 5 months, right? Trying to gather a lot of data points, right? Trying to gather a lot of insights from people. And so now in the research, in the survey, right, we ask questions around what are people's pain points, right? What are the platforms they use before now, right? And what are some of the features they would want to see in some P2P platforms, right? Because in as much as P2P is just buying and selling person to persons, we also have platforms that aid this buying and selling, right? Where you come, I want to buy this, I initiate a trade, somebody picks the trade, but then the platform really doesn't interfere. It's just there to connect buyers and seller. And so we are asking, okay, what are some of those features we want to see, users want to see on those platforms, to aid their P2P transaction. And so some of the notable findings we find is the fact that now these platforms have their own flaws, right? And they have their own ways of have their own place of improvement. And so our insights from some of those users are cut across, them complaining as to delaying the release of tokens from somebody you are trading with, right? The time it usually takes for a particular trade to settle, and of course other network issues, and of course bank, right? In as much as I'm buying tokens from you, right? Let's say, for example, I want to buy Bitcoin from you. It will be required I send you some money, and so now you might have experienced some delays now in receiving that money now due to bank issues, right? So these are some of the major concerns some users raised from using some of those platforms. So I think I'll just stop here in case there are other people that want something or you have other questions. Thank you.
So just out of curiosity, for those who are new to the conversation, how exactly are people still able to, go about the P2P trading in Nigeria with that regulation that came in?
Okay, yeah, so thank you so much for that. Now, as I've said, P2P happens in various ways, right? Like, okay, I might know Mr. A. Mr. A has some cryptocurrencies, right? And I might come to Mr. A and say, okay, I want to buy this particular token from you, right? How do we go about it, right? We initiate a transaction, I send you money, right? You send me whatever token it is I want to buy. But meanwhile, as I said previously, we have some platforms, right, that aid this particular, I don't want to call names of platforms, right? But we have platforms that connect both buyers and sellers of these cryptocurrencies. You get, and so you come on the platform, you say, okay, I want to buy. Most of these platforms, they have an escrow account, right? And so I come on the platform, I say, okay, I want to buy crypto Susu token, right? Let me use Bitcoin, for example. I want to buy Bitcoin, right? Now, the person at the other end, right, sees a notification that, okay, Abel wants to buy Bitcoin. You get, and so now what the platform does is that the platforms takes that person's token, Mr. A's tokens, right, and holds it, right. Now I on my own, I send money to the person's account, right. When I send the money to the person's account, meanwhile the Bitcoin is no longer in Mr. A's hand, right. And so what happens now is that once I send the money to Mr. A's account and he confirms it, right, he on his own, and all he just needs to do is just to click the button and say, okay, I have received the fund, and the Bitcoin will come into my own account. And so at the back end, right, the banks already know going on there, right? All they know is that money is being transferred transfer from one account to the other. Yeah, so basically that is just the processes people do to, buying these things. Apart from where I have to meet you directly and say, okay, fine, let's just do face-to-face and let's meet face-to-face and do this particular transaction. This usually occurs for OTC traders, right? Like over-the-counter traders, where you just have to come on their platform or come on to their office if they have one, right, to do this transaction with them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Sandy, what was the, maybe favorite part or best part of working on this report, or most memorable, part or thing on working on this particular report?
Okay, so I'll say for us, it was the interview and survey process. So this was because by interviewing all these key players in the industry and receiving insights from the surveys that were distributed, we were able to expand our knowledge. So for example, if we thought so and so was happening in the P2P space, and then we got this insight and feedback, and we're like, oh, okay, so it's not exactly as we thought. So I'll say we were learning in the process, so that would be the most memorable part for us.
Okay, now can you confirm that Nigeria is still top on the continent in terms of, the P2P, trading and market?
Yes. So as at the last report, Chainalysis released, so Africa is still top ranking in terms of P2P trade volume.
So despite the many especially regulatory challenges that has affected that P2P market, what factors kept driving, the sustenance of that particular market in Nigeria? Okay,
so I'll say unemployment, one, the fact that cryptocurrency of earning for the Nigerian youths, and also we have a very youthful population. So the majority of our youths are within the ages 18 to 34, and youths are more open to innovation or learning a lot of things. So we, the major population, which are the youths, we also played a role in driving these volumes because we are open to learning about blockchain, we're open to exploring and all of that, which led to the large volumes that we're currently seeing in Nigeria and the continent at large.
And if we're looking at the sentiment based on what you've mentioned now, unemployment, maybe, the fact that the Naira's devaluation is a thing that young people have to deal with and they need alternative sources to store value, right? What sentiments are there about cryptocurrency and the P2P trading in Nigeria?
Okay, so I would say the sentiment currently is while balancing both positive and neutral. So positive because a lot of persons are learning about blockchain itself, which is the foundation of cryptocurrency, and also cryptocurrency at large, and the possibilities in that sphere that it opens. So everyone is like, okay, oh wow, so this is a new innovation, I want to learn about it. So there's that positive sentiment. And then for the grassroots population that do not really know, they're not really enlightened about cryptocurrency, they're still neutral. Okay, I can see what's happening in this space, but I'm not sure yet if I want to delve into that. So I'll still have a balance of both positive and neutral sentiments.
Now, what future exists? Is there a future for P2P trading, cryptocurrency P2P trading in Nigeria? And this is to both Sandy and Abel. Now, I'm thinking, in terms of fighting inflation, is there a possibility? Is it actually positive in terms of remittances into Nigeria? Is it also positive? And other things that we're looking at, what exactly is driving the young population in Nigeria to go this route? What is the future? Is there a future in it? Sandy, you can go first, and then Abel.
Okay, so I would post the ban, and of recent with the advent of the national blockchain policy. Well, we've seen the central bank sort of sorting their stance towards blockchain, cryptocurrency, and also I'll say the future is still very much because we see a large influx of remittances via cryptocurrency. Because when you look at the cost of delivery, the time, and everything, everybody is like, oh, okay, so I know that if I send cryptocurrency to person B in Nigeria today, he's likely to get it in. He's going to get it in seconds. We're seeing more companies innovate around this cross-border payments, paying for, especially with the foreign exchange and payment of goods, foreign goods. We're seeing cryptocurrency play a lot of role in those spaces. And also with the CBN taking an approach of training their executives, which were also playing a role in that. I would say the future is still very bright, and we're going to see massive innovation and changes in the future.
Thank you, Sandy. Abel, what do you think?
Okay, so in terms of adoption, and maybe volume, particularly for the P2P, right? Now, just as my colleague Sandy have said, now we are seeing the government are becoming, they are welcoming, right? Trying to really understand this thing called blockchain, right? And this thing called cryptocurrencies. And so for me, I think, and also from our interviews from some of our respondents, right? Now, we don't like the regulations that might come in next, right? Of course, might be positive or negative, but really now with the way CBN, right, are going, right, and with the way the government is actually going, welcoming, this whole concept of technology, right? We might see, for me, I think we might see a decline in P2P now, because how it was before is that transaction have been conducted through the bank, right? And so if there are policies that actually welcome, okay, let's allow transactions go through the bank again, right? We might see a shift, right, in terms of volume, right, in the normal direct P2P market. But of course, I think it's going to be a welcome one, and there's still lots to really, the future really holds a lot, especially in cryptocurrencies, right, and even P2P, because the space is still really fresh, and I think there's still lots for the future, for us to see the future rather. Thank you.
So there's a virtual audience, if you're listening to this, that are interacting directly right now. I would allow for a few minutes interaction. So they would introduce themselves, and we would have some chit chat about this particular conversation, and maybe the broader blockchain conversation that is the mother of cryptocurrencies and P2P and that whole discussion. So we can start with Yinka or Yo-Yo. So if you have thoughts on the conversation we've just had now, in terms of comments, reactions, this is like the time to drop it. And then I have a couple of questions also that every other person, everyone, here can actually contribute to.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you very much, Anthony. Always love listening to your show, because this is where we get a lot of the insights in the industry. So I am Uyoyo Ogedegbe, and I currently serve as the Managing Director of RapCDC, rapcdc.com, and it's a stablecoin consortium, if you will, and our focus is on changing the infrastructure, changing the payments infrastructure, across Africa. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any thoughts about the conversation we're having right now? Thoughts, comments from Uyoyo before I move to Yinka?
Oh, no, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I think the way I approach the topic is, as far as peer-to-peer trading is as old as man, right? If you think about it, it's trade by barter, right? I have something you want, you have something I want, I'm willing to exchange it for you. So money and everything in between is just a means to do that trade by barter. And as long as the payments infrastructure, regulation around payments, regulation around the exchange of these items, cryptocurrencies, stable coins, whatever it is, as long as the regulation is not clear, a lot of this transaction is just going to go underground, but it's going to continue growing. It's here to stay, fortunately or unfortunately. So we're better off just coming out with clear-cut regulation to encourage the right type of players, to participate in this space and to move the space forward. But if regulation remains unclear and, a lot of these transactions continue to happen on small, closed WhatsApp groups and Telegram groups, then it becomes harder and harder for the government to keep track of, who is transacting, who is spending money. There are very serious concerns as far as like anti-money laundering, terrorist financing. So it's very important that the government is able to, to properly encourage and guide players in this space. And fortunately, I'd say the CBN have been doing a lot. They've been very engaging. They've been very interactive. On what's the best path forward. So yeah, The future is looking good.
Okay, thank you, Yoyo. Now, generally, right, how much of progress in terms of dealing with the CBN and other regulators, how much of progress has the cryptocurrency and the blockchain industry seen in Nigeria? Now, I'm saying this because right now it doesn't look like there is a clear-cut, path, to especially cryptocurrencies, and how they're managed in the country. But there was a particular, announcement of some kind of taxation, on products, and within this space. And seeing that we have a new government in Nigeria, are we expecting, clear-cut paths? Are we expecting a change in the direction in terms of being very clear on what we're supposed to do in this industry? Now, this is open. Anyone can actually, target this and make comments and share thoughts on this.
Oh, okay. So at Convexity, we've been engaging a lot with the regulators, by and large, and not just in Nigeria, Rwanda, Kenya, globally. We have members of Convexity that are part of the Digital Euro Association. So across Africa and Europe, we've been engaging with regulators. And I need to say this, I'm not sure that there's anywhere where the regulation is absolutely clear, right, on the next steps. Because we have to realize it's still a very nascent industry. It's very important to allow innovation without necessarily stifling it. So it's still fairly early to come up with any sort of like robust regulation around this space, because the space is still growing very quickly. Every other month, there's something new. There's a new technology. There's a new path forward in the blockchain space. So it's I think the approach the government should be taking, and I think that's the approach many governments are now taking. Instead of coming up with like a hammer or like a fool, you're trying to come up with a robust regulation to regulate something that's not entirely clear yet. The approach should be create sandboxes, right? Allow serious players in the space, take the lead. Allow innovators take the lead. Create sandboxes. Write them letters of no objection. Just allow them, watch them closely, but allow them innovate. Allow innovators innovate, right? And I think that's the approach the Federal Reserve in the US is now taking. I think they announced that early last week, and that's also the approach the CBN is taking in Nigeria. So I don't know who copied it. I think at this point it was the US Federal Reserve that copied the Nigerian CBN. But yeah, that's the approach I'm aware that they are now taking, right? We would create sandboxes for you. Sandboxes are basically regulatory environments to allow startups, and innovators innovate. So would allow you innovate and would watch you closely, right? Without trying to guess what the innovation will be like in the future and try to come up with a stifling regulation. So I think that's the approach they are now taking. And luckily, we're the leaders in CBDC with the e-Naira. Nigeria is a leader in central bank digital currency. And yes, the first e-Naira did not do too well. But I'm also aware that they are implementing something called the e-Naira 2.0, right? That brings the banking system together, encourages commercial banks to innovate, encourages blockchain players to innovate around the e-Naira. And at Convexity as well, we're also official partners of the INARA, and we've been very involved in building the INARA 2.0 on the engineering side. So I'll definitely say that's a good approach. That's probably the best approach at this point. Create sandboxes, give these companies letters of no objection. Let them innovate, let them move forward. And when the space has matured a bit, then regulators can come in, and it's be clearer then to say, okay, this is the exact regulation we need for the space. But for now, I think they've taken the best approach, right? With sandboxes, like a fantastic company is doing MTech. MTech is doing like this very interesting sandboxes for different central banks across Africa, right? I think that's the right approach. I think a lot of progress would come out of this.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this before we, any other thoughts on this, Abel, Sandy?
Okay. So for me, I think just in addition to what Mr. Leo just said, this is just tilting towards compliance and all of you, and that's the whole essence of regulations and the rest. But really, I think the government should still be very, very open, all right? Just as, of course, as they are, like the CBN, we are currently training them on the whole concept of blockchain and the rest, which is also a very welcome one, right? And so they should continue to be very open, right? Interact with key people in the space. Now, you don't come up with regulations for people in a particular space when you don't even know what is going on in this space, right? And so this is much more easier when you interact with these people, right? And try to understand, okay, what is this? What is going on here, right? How do we better improve this, right? What are some of the strategies we can really do to come up with things that will better the nation? Because when you look at the volumes, right, that have been carried out in terms of cryptocurrency and the rest, that is a very huge amount of money, right, that the government can also benefit from. Of course, from true taxes and the rest, right? I believe so much we're also within a solution where taxation on cryptocurrency is going to be very, very possible, right? And so things around this, government should, be very, very open, continue to collaborate with some of the key stakeholders, right, as they are doing, which is very, very commendable, right? And of course, we'll continue to see progress in this space. Thank you.
Thank you. So finally, this thought just came to my head. I know a couple of countries on the continent have signed up for the PAPS, that payment system under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement.
Absolutely.
The Central Bank of Kenya, I think it was just a few days ago, right? Probably last week. Nigeria, almost all of West Africa. And this is supposed to be, make payments easier, smoother, ensure that Africans trade with Africans much more than we do, because it's
I think very importantly, without having to go through the dollar.
Yes, exactly. So is there any sort of relationship, right, between, or is there any meeting point between, what we have in the cryptocurrency space and what the AFCFTA is trying to achieve with PAPS? Any meeting points, any things we can learn, or places where there are intersections?
Yes, absolutely. Very good point. So for PAPS, I'm aware that PAPS is an initiative of the Afro-Exim Bank, and I'm aware that several African countries have started trading, on that Pan-African payment settlement system. It's basically the NIBS for Africa, if you like. And it's a very interesting time. But I'm also aware that a lot of the technology powering PAPS is built on blockchain. Right, it's built on blockchain technology, and a lot of the core people behind PAPS are Nigerians too. So very interesting times for us. One of the key companies, right, behind the PAPS technology is also, it's a company that Convexity is also very, involved with. So I can tell you for sure that PAPS is built to a good extent on blockchain technology. And blockchain, the technology is going to change our world as we know it.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been an interesting conversation with you all. Would there be any final comments or thoughts that would want to be shared by anyone right now? Abel, Sandy, Uyoyo, any final thoughts as we wrap up the conversation today?
Yeah, so I'd say cryptocurrencies have a bad rap, right? Especially in Nigeria, because I suppose When most people really learned about like Bitcoin and all this stuff was during MMM and the whole several Ponzi scheme. So many people have just never gotten over that, that bad branding and that bad image. But the technology brought by this new technology, the opportunities are immense. It's changing the world in real time, and across the world, everybody's now taking blockchain very seriously, right? The US government, we were at BlackRock's office, BlackRock in New York. So BlackRock is the biggest investment fund in the world, and they manage around $10 trillion in assets. $10 trillion in assets. That's several times higher than the GDP of Africa. Mm-hmm. So we were at their headquarters in New York last week, and I can tell you that BlackRock, the US, every serious player, even BRICS, right? Every serious player is taking blockchain very seriously, because it changes the way transactions happen, right? So the current payments infrastructure it simply cannot carry the load that we are putting on it. The current payments infrastructure was built in the 90s, and these systems are unable to successfully carry the load, right? But yeah, so blockchain is that new rail. Blockchain is the new infrastructure that would substantially improve the way payments are made, especially cross-border payments. So very, very interesting times.
Thank you.
And I'll encourage more Nigerians to get involved in this space, because it's a very interesting space. Yeah.
Okay. Abel, any final thoughts from you, Abel?
Okay, yeah. So for me, like, I know the whole concept of blockchain is like a moving train, right? And I would still want to encourage, people to, try to understand what is really going on in this space, right? What is this space talking about, right? What is the whole concept of blockchain and how they can even leverage it, right? Because we've seen many companies, using particularly Convexity. Most of our solutions are really built on the blockchain. So there are a lot of things that can be done, right, using the blockchain. And so I just want to, encourage people to get to know what is this technology all about now, and particularly for this particular research, right, that we carry out. Of course, with the continued growth and adoption of P2P trading, right, of course, there's really going to be expectation for great achievements, right, such as increase in financial inclusion, empowering of individuals. However, I think it is very important that we note that there are some risks, right, that are involved in some of these things, right, and so such as fraud, and that is where the issue of compliance, I said, maybe government concerns, trying to come up with things that we call anti-money laundering, and a lot of frauds, around this space, right? And so it's also good that people should be very, very careful, right, about this space too, right? But that doesn't usually learn about this space, and also be very, very cautious about this space. Know what are some of the loopholes in this space, if there are, right, and all of you. So thank you so much. That is just that for me.
And Sandy, any final thoughts?
Okay, so I think Mr. Abel have covered pretty much everything. So I'll just say beyond that, like, the government should also have like internal roundtable discussions with players in this space and people who also want to learn about blockchain, cryptocurrency, and digital assets as well.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts here on my show. Thank you. I look forward to having you maybe at the end of the year again, so we can look at the whole cryptocurrency space on in Nigeria and maybe on the continent, and share some thoughts about them. So thank you very much to Abel and to Sandy, to Uyuyo, and the whole team at Convexity.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to catch up on all the live shows right here on africatechradio.com.